نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, this is the second class covering belief in the hereafter based on the explanation of Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen for Al-Aqidah al-Wasitiyah by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala. And today's date is September what? 24th, 2019, just for archival purposes. Okay, so we're going to go right into class. We have a pretty long class today. Inshallah, we got to get through quite a bit of material. But first, as always, we have to get the juices flowing. So, review from last week. What books will we be using for this 10-week session and why? Okay. Bismillah. No. What books? Of course. Al-Aqidah al-Wasitiyah. By who? No. Who wrote Al-Aqidah al-Wasitiyah? Right. Ibn Taymiyyah wrote Al-Aqidah al-Wasitiyah. Tahir. What books? Plural. So what's the other book we're using? Explanation of Al-Aqidah al-Wasitiyah. Okay, well that's by Shaykh Uthaymeen. But what other book are we using? Right. The explanation of Al-Tahawi's Creed by Ibn Abil Izz al-Hanafi, rahimahullah ta'ala. Okay, and we, as you can see last week, we started fusing that in. Why are we using a book in the first place? Somewhere we didn't use a book. Go ahead. Yes. Last week I talked about the importance of learning how to read. I don't mean phonetically sound out things. You can read the words, you can read sentences. There are many people who have graduated from universities who do not know how to read. So what we're talking about here is not a literacy in the sense that you know how to put words together, but so that we can start to break down the intention of the author and question what is being written. I don't mean question it like you're a skeptic, but I mean to begin to question what is the intention of the author and try to understand what you're reading. Yes?
So can we say comprehend? Is that better?
Comprehension is good.
Okay.
Yeah, that works. All right. Bismillah. Why is it important to study belief in the hereafter?
I would say.
Okay, so one brother says so that we can prepare for it. Okay. Well, keep going.
I was going to say it's a command.
Because it's a command. Okay. Yes.
Strengthens your iman.
Because it does strengthen your faith, no doubt about it. Jihad? It is one of the pillars of iman. It's one of the pillars of iman. So its status in the deen is beyond the status of anything that is not a tenet of iman or a pillar of iman. Okay, what else did we say? How many times does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention belief in Him coupled with belief in the hereafter in the Quran? Does anybody remember that? 21, 23. I think last week I said 21 times. And that's direct coupling. Because there are places where it may not be directly coupled. And that shows you the importance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would join the belief in the hereafter with belief in Him is a very clear indicator of its importance. But what else do you remember about the importance of studying about the hereafter? How long will you be in the hereafter? Forever. And we talked about when you go to a place for a couple weeks, you want to know about that place, right? Because knowing about that place helps you to adequately prepare for going there. Everybody is going to this place. You know, a lot of people, a lot of our people, they go to Disney World, for example, or they take trips here and there. And before you go, you want to check up and find out what kind of deals you can get, what's the best places to go, and what lines to avoid standing in, what's the best time to go, and all of that other stuff. And people go to other countries and subhanAllah. And everybody wants to know what's happening when they get there. They want to know how to navigate. Well, the hereafter, each one of us and every soul on earth right now will eventually be there forever. And so studying about it is what helps us to better prepare for that day. Tahir, what is Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah's definition for faith in the hereafter?
Anything the Prophet of Allah, anything the Prophet has given us and explained to us about the hereafter.
Tahir, anybody else? Belief in everything that happens after death, except that was his definition for the last day. We didn't get a definition for the hereafter. And remember what we said, that sometimes the terms are used interchangeably. But if they're used together, the last day is referring to what happens after al-ba'th, after the resurrection. Whereas the hereafter refers to everything that happens after death, including the last day. All right? But like I said, sometimes they're used interchangeably. Allah established rational proofs for belief in the hereafter. Give at least 2 examples from the Quran. Like, the one that we went over in some detail last week. Does anybody remember? From the end of Surah Yasin. وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقًا. Man puts forth an example for us, but he forgot his own creation. وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقًا قَالَ مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ. Who is it that's going to bring life to these bones when they're scattered dust? Remember that? طيب. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how was the answer? قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنْشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ. Say that the one who gave life to them the first time, will give life to them again. That's what we call a rational proof. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling mankind to think. Okay? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you in the first place from a nutfa, right? From this what we would say al-ma' al-maheen, which is they often translate as disgraced liquid, right? But not disgraced is actually not a good translation for that, but that's beside the point. Sorry? Okay, that works. The point is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you in the first place from dust. And in some ayat, from dirt or from clay. The point is what? That all of these are non-living substances. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you in the first place from a non-living substance. So why would there be a question about who's going to bring life to these bones that have decayed and so forth? مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ, when they have turned into dust. Allah says that the one who created them in the first place will bring them back to life. Okay. What other sequence? Pull out your masahif. As you know, this is going to be an integral part of the class. So pull out your mushaf, go to the end of Surah Yasin. Yasin is the 36th chapter. And the ayat, maybe it begins from 78, I'm not sure. Yeah.
The slides aren't connected upstairs.
The slides are not connected upstairs. Can someone someone talk to Sheikh Hanif, please? Yeah, he's giving a test. He's giving a test to somebody upstairs. He'll connect them, inshallah. Tahir, where were we? The end of Surah Yasin. Did you make it there, Muhammad?
No.
You didn't make it there yet?
My phone is dying.
Your phone is dying.
Yeah.
Man, that's a great excuse. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
It's original.
13%.
Alhamdulillah. Tahir, somebody else.
All right, 136.
Yes. No, I don't think so.
That's what you said.
No, the 36th chapter. Yasin is the 36th chapter. Father, you found that, Bukhari?
Yeah, he said, he who produces for you fire out of a green tree, when behold, you kindle therewith.
Okay, so that's the next ayah. The next ayah. So the one who created you the first time. And then he says, the one who brings out fire from a green tree. What do we say was the significance of that? Yeah.
Because the tree is moist.
Right, because a tree is a living thing and it's moist. Whereas fire is the driest of dry, right? So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing His absolute control over everything to the point that even a substance that is normally you wouldn't expect the dry to come from the moist. So He's in control over that. الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُم مِنَ الشَّجَرِ الْأَخْضَرِ نَارًا. Keep going. Next ayah.
Is not he who created the heavens and the earth able to create the life of them?
Did the one who created the heavens and the earth, is He not able to create its like? And so by extension, that which is easier than the creation of the heavens and the earth, which is mankind. So do you see the rational proofs here being set up? So in other words, let's just look at it like this. If I said, mashallah, Tariq can lift a car, tabarakallah. This one right here. Y'all don't believe me? This, Tariq. Like a Pinto.
You tell the car.
Like, let's just say he can lift an entire car. Okay? Then we would say he can lift this computer. It was Mbani Ola. And he is more likely to be able to lift this computer because he can lift the car. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He can create what is much more difficult than the creation of man, which is the heavens and the earth and everything in between. So therefore, bringing back life to man is easy. Also, on the first one, He says, He who created it the first time. And we talked about last week how once you've done something once, doing it the second time is easier. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. And to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala belongs the best example. I'm just trying to establish those rational proofs. So don't forget that. And at several places throughout the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establishes rational proof in the hereafter, in the resurrection. Like, Bismillah. Let's go on. Bismillah. Read today's questions, please, if you don't mind.
Explain, Heather.
Yeah. You can read it.
Explain the author's statement, man passes through 5 stages. Do you agree? The study of the barzakh includes 2 broad topics, 2 large topics. Name them. Is there proof from the Quran that there will be a fitna, a trial, a testing in the grave? Explain your answer. What is meant by the trial of the grave? Is anyone exempt from it? Exempt, meaning there won't be tested. What proof does the author provide for punishment of the grave? Is the punishment continuous? What are you going to do to protect yourself from the punishment of the grave?
So these are the questions by the end of today's lesson, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. You need to be able to answer these questions. As you can see, the first question is explain the author's statement, man passes through 5 stages. So before we get to the issue of the barzakh, we need to complete what we didn't cover last week, which is the 5 stages of man. And this starts on what page?
Page 156.
Okay, so you want to turn to page 156 in the explanation of Al-Aqidah Al-Wasitiyah by Shaykh al-Islam by Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah. Yeah, page 156, inshallah. If you don't have the physical book, then you should have had the PDF because we instructed you how to download it last week. Tahir, follow this one down.
Man passes through 5 stages.
All right, listen closely because we're here to read now. This one down, follow this.
Man passes through 5 stages. The stage of non-existence, then the stage via his mother of pregnancy, then the stage of this world, then the stage of al-barzakh. It is a state in between the world and the hereafter. Then the hereafter. As for the stage of non-existence,
okay, so he says that there are 5 stages that people go through: non-existence, then the prenatal stage, life on earth, the barzakh, and the hereafter. Like, we clear on the 5 there? Khalilullah. You're a repeat offender. Alhamdulillah, we don't have 3 strikes here. California, that'd be it, Sheikh. You'd be out for life, man. Like, all right. Stage of non-existence. So now, the Shaykh, and I want you to also get used to this here. The Shaykh, rahimahullah, he says these are the 5 stages. He makes this point, and now he wants to break it down and give you evidence for those points. Okay? And that's something else that we need to get used to. Especially when we talk about the hereafter. Because the hereafter is from belief in the unseen. And belief in the unseen, we can't start doing qiyas and analogies and these type of things. In terms of to establish beliefs. We need to have proof from revelation, from the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Other than that, it's conjecture. All right. So here he says for the stage of fadl. Go ahead. First stage.
as for the stage of non-existence, it is proven by his, exalted is he, his statement. The English translation, which reads from Surah Al-Insan, has there not been over man a period of time when he was nothing even to be mentioned? He, the exalted, also says in Surah Al-Hajj, the 5th verse.
Okay, so we're gonna skip that because that's gonna take a long time to read that. So the point is, the first stage is the stage of non-existence. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. Did not a time come to man when he was not even mentioned? And man himself and each individual. That is, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the heavens and the earth before he created mankind. And he created the jinn before he created mankind. So they were creation before the creation of man. And man was not even a thing to be mentioned. And then each individual as well. I mean, 100 years ago, none of us were a thing to be mentioned. Right? So this is he's calling this a stage for mankind. There are some who do not hold that to be a stage in and of itself. And they look at the stages of man to be 4. Starting with this stage here, which is the prenatal stage. Yeah.
Concerning the stage of pregnancy, Allah, exalted as he, says, the translation from Surah Az-Zumar, He creates you in the wombs of your mother. Creation after creation in 3 veils of darkness.
Yeah, okay. So here they're calling this the pregnancy stage. I'm not a fan of that translation. But the prenatal stage is actually can be broken down into 2 categories. Because each one of you, the Prophet ﷺ said, is formed in the womb of his mother as a nutfa, mudghah, as a alaqa. So you go through stages, but then the Prophet ﷺ said after those 120 days, ثُمَّ يُنْفَخُ فِيهِ الرُّوحِ, and then the spirit, the ruh, is blown into him. Like, life is connected to what? When do we say a person is alive? Right. So when the soul is connected to the body. When the soul, okay, so right now, everybody that's sitting right here, we're made up of both body and soul. When the soul leaves the body, we call that person dead. Right? They may look exactly the same, but that person is no longer alive because the soul has left the body. So when the soul enters the body, then that person is considered to be alive. Now, the life inside of the womb is not the same as the life that is outside. There are several rulings that differ. But prior to that, the fetus is not considered to be alive prior to the ruh being blown into it. Now,
regarding the stage of this world, Allah exalted
right. So he says, "Fi dhulumatin thalath," right? In 3 veils of darkness. Who has you got the book on PDF? See? You following out there? Page 156. I think
now it's on 157. But this is the
but
commentary.
That's not the PDF number. Like, because the way the PDF is 2 pages in one, so it might be like page 80 or something like that, or 78 on the PDF number. But if you look at the numbers on the actual book, it's page 157. Okay? All right. Sorry?
It's the same.
You got it?
It's the same. The page number is the same.
Yeah, the page numbers, right. The page numbers on the actual book. But if the numbers of the PDF numbers are different. 79, 80, right? Okay, alhamdulillah. Tahir. Next. Point is, follow along. So we can read together. So, Allah says, Fi dhulumatin thalath. He creates them in those 3 veils of darkness. What does that mean? What is that referring to? What are 3 veils of darkness?
First trimester,
The first trimester, the second trimester, the third trimester. Okay. All right. That's ijtihad. You trying. That's good. Huh?
What you asked about with the 3,
Read the ayah again, Sheikh. No, I want somebody back there to read the ayah. Like, so that somebody back there read the ayah. You got the book in front of you. Read what it says. You have to have the book. All of you got these devices, and you look at all types of stuff on there all day.
I wasn't there last week.
No, it's okay. Whoever. Tahir, go to ummonline.org. On that first page, on the left-hand side, you'll be able to download all 3. Huh? I saw somebody in the back there. You got the book? No. No? Tahir, go ahead. Read it. Read the ayah again.
He creates you in the wombs of your mothers.
Creates you in the womb of your mothers. Creation after creation.
And 3 veils of darkness.
And 3 veils of darkness. 3 veils of darkness. Tahir, what's that mean? How many read the Quran in Ramadan? All right, don't tell on yourself. Oh, maybe I should feel like this. How many read the Quran at least twice in Ramadan? Oh, okay. Like, mashallah. Yeah, go ahead, Sheikh. Somebody wants to take a stab at it?
what the 3 parts of it?
Yes. What are the 3 stages, 3 veils of
I think the placenta,
the placenta?
the mother's stomach,
The stomach
and I'm trying to go
and the uterus. We're done. Alhamdulillah. See, when you work together, great things happen. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. All right. So, because I don't want you to just this is about reading here. We're not here to just sit there and you stare and shake your head and mashallah. No, I want you to understand what's happening. Fadl, third stage.
Regarding the stage of this world, Allah exalted this as He says about it from Surah An-Nahl, 78th verse, translation. And Allah has brought you out from the wombs of your mothers while you know nothing. And He gave you hearing, sight, and hearts, that you might give thanks to Allah.
Subhanallah. All right, so Allah Azza wa Jal brought you out from the wombs of your mothers. At that point, you knew nothing. Everybody starts, subhanallah, knowing nothing. Subhanallah. And then Allah Azza wa Jal gives you hearing, and He gives you sight, and He gives you hearts, so that you will show your gratitude to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. This life is about shukr. This life is about showing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can I tell them a story about last week, Shaykh?
Min fadlik.
Right. So last week, Dr. Mukhtar and I were out with the mutual friend. And he said something that was, I found it to be quite deep. And so he was talking about how before he had an understanding, he wondered why certain people had to deal with difficulties in this life. And everybody faces various levels of difficulty. But he specifically referred to somebody who is a paraplegic. And, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala test somebody like that? And this is a question that a lot of people who don't believe in Allah, period, or don't believe in a God, these are the type of things that run them away from religion. That's a discussion for a different day. So anyway, what he said was, which was quite interesting. He said, so then I started pondering over, well, what blessings has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really given this person if they have to live like that? Is this really, can we really say that this person has any blessings from Allah? And he said, then I thought about it, that if somebody came up to that person with a knife and was threatening to stab them, what would he do? Jump back like this. Move his head away from the knife. Because that person, even though they're in a difficult situation, they don't want to be dead. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them with life. Life itself is an opportunity to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to show our thanks, to enjoy some of the pleasures of life, even though we may be dealing with difficult circumstances. And again, the point here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us ample opportunity to show our gratitude to Him, if it is not just for the opportunity of life, the opportunity to worship Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is a fadl, that is a virtue, and that is a bounty and a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we use that gift properly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us everlasting bliss. Right.
It is around these stages that success and misery revolve. They are the abodes, the circumstances, the situations of test and trial.
And this, to be honest with you, the language here is a bit misleading, because it's not around these previous stages. We talked about what? Non-existence. Are we tested, tried based on non-existence? No. Prenatal, before you're even born. Are you going to be questioned about what you did in the womb? No. So the stage around which there is the trial and the test is life on earth, the life of this dunya. Nah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said,
as he exalted as he says, who has created death and life, that he may test you, which of you is best in deed, in action, in behavior. And he is the Almighty, the oft forgiven.
And this, subhanAllah, Allah tells us here that he created death and life. By the way, death is a creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bring forth death on Yawm al-Qiyamah and is going to be slaughtered. There's not going to be, there will be no death after that day. So death is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created death and life for what purpose? لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ, to test you. Which of you is most indeed, right? Not who does the most, who does the best. Very important that we pay attention to that. Not who does the most, who does the best. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Right. Who is most excellent in their conduct and in their actions. And that comprises two things. That excellence comprises two things. أَخْلَصُهُ وَأَصْوَبُهُ, as Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad said. Those who are most sincere and whose deeds are most compliant with the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If a deed is done on the sunnah, subhanAllah, you look at it from the masha'Allah, but it's done for other than Allah Azza wa Jal, it's not accepted. And if it is sincere, but it's not in compliance with the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, it's not accepted. So either way a person goes, those deeds are not accepted until they are sincerely done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and done in compliance with the teachings of our Prophet ﷺ.
As for the stage of Al-Barzakh,
yeah, there you go. Al-Barzakh. No. But listen, Ikhwan, this part right here to me is important. Life on earth, because this is our test. And this is the place where you get to do work. After this dunya, there is no work to be done. And so striving to make sure that what you do is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the things, oftentimes we think about, well, how can we be mukhlis? What can we do to help us with ikhlas? One of the things that you can do, starting from today, is make sure that you have a deed that you do that nobody else knows about. Make sure that there is something that you do consistently on a regular basis that nobody else knows about. Not your wife, not your children, definitely not people outside of your home. But try to get yourself used to not being recognized for the good that you do. A lot of what we do is communal in nature. And it's supposed to be. Like praying in Jama'ah. Like fasting, like we do in Ramadan. But maybe there's another day you fast and nobody else knows about it. Maybe there's a sadaqah, a charity that you give. Maybe there's a prayer that you make that nobody else knows about. And you try to be as consistent as possible because this helps to build ikhlas. The other thing that's quite important is just more knowledge about who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and who we really are. As some of the scholars of the past used to say, and these were the best of our nations, subhanAllah. If sins had a smell, no one would get close to me. We all know ourselves. We all know what we do. And the next man is no better than you. Why are we trying to prove something to this person or that person? But ikhlas, and since that is sincerity, to make sure that it is in line with the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ requires what you're doing right now, which is seeking knowledge. Otherwise, there's absolutely no way that you'll be able to do what you do following the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ because you have no clue what those teachings are. And so we find people, they do stuff unintentionally, but it's against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and perhaps they think they're being rewarded for it. After salat, many times you'll see a brother Turn to the brother next to him. What does he say? Qabbalallah. Assalamu alaikum. Tayyib. Great. Dua is beautiful. Allah accept from you. Right? Assalamu alaikum. Beautiful. But did the Prophet ﷺ do that one time after Salat? One time after Salat. Is there one narration? The Prophet ﷺ, the companions, they started praying in Mecca. This was the one ritual from Islam that was prescribed before the Hijrah. Zakat was after the Hijrah. Fasting in Ramadan was after the Hijrah. Hajj was after the Hijrah. The Prophet ﷺ prayed for at least, I'm talking about these prayers here, 15 years. I don't know how many times, I mean, you can do 15 years. However many prayers are in a year, 350 days, and on a lunar calendar, 355 days, 5 prayers a day. So that's taking you up to 1,800 prayers or something like that. In any event, 18,000, 20,000 prayers. Do we have one incident where the Prophet ﷺ said Taqabbalallah after Salat? Or one of the companions who was with the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr or Omar, Uthman, Ali, radiallahu ta'ala, returned to somebody. Do we have an example of any of them after Salat saying anything to each other? What did the Prophet ﷺ tell us to say after Salat? Astaghfirullah. 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 How can we be busy doing what the Prophet ﷺ told us to do after Salat if we Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum, Assalamu alaikum, Kayf halik, Taqabbalallah. All with what? Good intention. But all ignoring the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And so we want our deeds to be the best. لِنَبَلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. To test which of you is best indeed. What does best mean? It means it is sincere and it's according to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us in his remembrance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us in thanking him and worshiping him properly. Nah.
انتهى هذه الآية, and behind them is Barzakh.
Barzakh, 4th stage, yes.
Until the day when they will be resurrected.
And behind them is a barrier, a barzakh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, until the day that they are resurrected. Alright, so the barzakh is established from the Quran. Now,
concerning the stage of the hereafter, which is the apex, the highest point, the topmost point of the stages, and the end of the journey, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, after having mentioned the other stages in Surah Al-Mu'minun, 15th and 16th verses, after that, surely you will die. Then again, surely you will be resurrection on the day of resurrection. His statement, may Allah have mercy upon him, the belief in all that the Prophet ﷺ informed us regarding that which will happen after the moment of death. All of this is included in the belief in the last day.
Right, everything. So Shaykh al-Islam's definition is the belief in all that the Prophet ﷺ informed us regarding what will happen after death. And when he says what the Prophet ﷺ informed us of, he's also including in that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed us of, because we only know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said because he revealed it to the Prophet ﷺ. Yani we only know what Allah said in the Quran because the Prophet ﷺ informed us of the Quran. Okay? So it doesn't exclude what is in the Quran. Now, this is because
once man dies, he enters the phase of the last day. That is why it is usually said, whoever dies, his resurrection has come. Therefore, hence, whatever happens after death, it is part of the last day. Therefore, how close is the day to us? There's nothing between us and it except the death of a man, of a person.
The only thing between you and your hereafter is death. And wallahi, we're very fragile beings. We're very fragile. There's anything can happen, subhanAllah. And I mean, nasallahu al-afiyah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. There's nothing between us and our hereafter except the soul leaving the body. That's it. And so preparation is imperative, right?
Then he enters into the last day, wherein there is nothing except payback, except recompense, except payback for the deeds. And due to this, it is compulsory, it is required, it's obligatory upon us to pay close attention to this important point.
Keep going.
Oh man, think well and ponder, think about it attentively, very closely. You will discover that you are at risk, for the time of death is not known to us. A person can go out of his house without returning to it. A person can sit down on his office chair without standing from it. A person can sleep on his bed. However, he might be carried from his bed to his washing bed. That is the place where he will be washed in preparation to be buried. This matter requires us to seize upon the opportunity of life to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Life is an opportunity. And our Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمَ انْقَطَعَ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ. Once a person dies, all of his actions will cease, except for 3. And so, once you know that this is your opportunity to do work, then it is imperative for us to take advantage of that opportunity to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, اتحلت الدنيا مدبرة وارتحلت الآخرة المقبلة. He said that the world is traveling away from you. Listen to this. This dunya is traveling away from you. Whereas the hereafter is traveling towards you. وَلِكُلِّ وَاحِدَةٍ مِّنْهُمَا بَنُونَ. Each one of them, that is the dunya and the hereafter, both of them have children. فَكُونُوا مِنْ أَبْنَاءِ الْآخِرَةِ وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنْ أَبْنَاءِ الدُّنْيَا. So be from the children of the hereafter, and don't be from the children of the dunya. Be from the children of the hereafter. Don't be from the children of the dunya. فَإِنَّ الْيَوْمَ عَمَلٌ وَلَا حِسَابٌ وَغَدًا حِسَابٌ وَلَا عَمَلٌ. Today, there is the opportunity for deeds without any account. There's no account today. And tomorrow, there will be an account. That's when the audit will happen, and there will be no opportunity for deeds. There's no opportunity to change your books at that point. Audit yourself today. كُونُوا مِنْ أَبْنَاءِ الْآخِرَةِ وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنْ أَبْنَاءِ الدُّنْيَا. Be from the children of the hereafter, and don't be from the children of the dunya. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, قُلْ إِنَّ الْمَوْتَ الَّذِي تَفِرُّونَ مِنْهُ فَإِنَّهُ مُلَاقِيكُمْ. Say that the death that you are running away from is actually in front of you. The hereafter is traveling towards you. The dunya is traveling away from you. You're running away from the hereafter, but it's in front of you. There's no running away from it. There's no escape. SubhanAllah. There's only preparation.
This matter requires us to seize upon the opportunity that we have in this life. This needs to be rephrased.
Yes.
Opportunity in this life to turn, to repent to Allah, the mighty and sublime. A person needs to be constantly be aware of repenting to Allah. That is, of turning to Him, of returning to Him. He should be constantly aware and trying to seek His forgiveness until his lifespan ends, which is a beautiful phrase for when he dies. Such that when he does this, he will be in a good, desirable state.
So here, the shaykh, rahimahullah ta'ala, is encouraging us to be from the people of tawbah, to constantly turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a lot of us mistakenly believe that tawbah is only from sin. Tawbah is also from doing things that are makruh, which wouldn't be considered sin. Tawbah is from leaving off things that maybe you should be doing. Like If you're not praying at night, turn to Allah. Make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that you will be from the people who pray at night. Turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when you turn towards Allah, your back gets turned on everything that is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you're doing those things that are displeasing to Allah, you've turned your back on Allah. And so you turn back to Allah. And that's the meaning of tawbah. Taba, to return, to turn back. Inshallah, we're going to stop now for the adhan. It's time for salah. Time for the adhan?
Yes.
What's it saying on the clock? And the,
Coming in 6:59.
okay, so we still have 2 minutes apparently. Okay, so inshallah, we'll keep going. The next section, Shaykh, Fadl, just read the next section. So we finished that first section of 5 stages. Fadl.
Okay. They also believe in the trial of the grave, the punishment of the grave, and its pleasure. His statement,
Okay, so this now, we're going to cover the stage al-barzakh. Barzakh, okay? And the barzakh is which stage? That's immediately after a person dies and before the resurrection. That stage is called al-barzakh, okay? And we're going to cover 2 main areas here. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah deals with 2 main things. One is the trial of the grave, and the second is the punishment of the grave. So, the trial of the grave, as we can see here, there are 6 basic or 6 main elements that we'll be dealing with according to the explanation that we had. The first we're going to cover is proofs for the existence of a trial in the grave. How do we know that someone is being tried or that there is a fitna in the grave? We only know because there is revelation that is indicative of that. Then we're going to talk about conceptualization. In other words, what is this trial of the grave? What does that even refer to? Somebody says to you, well, what does that mean, a trial in the grave? That's what we're going to cover. The magnitude of the trial, meaning how severe, the severity of that trial. Exemptions from the trial of the grave. I mean, is there anyone who will not be tried in their grave? Then we're going to have a discussion on menk and nakir, the 2 questioning angels, because some scholars do not believe that those are the names of those angels, and we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about the difference between the believer and the hypocrite and disbeliever as it relates to the trial of the grave. So we're going to stop for the adhan, inshallah, and we'll begin with these topics immediately after Salat bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad. How was the audio okay? Huh?
This is okay?
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala ma ba'd. So again, if we just go back for a second, that we said that the barzakh, the study of the barzakh, it covers 2 main areas according to our study. The first is the trial of the grave, and then there is the punishment, what is often called the punishment of the grave, but there's both punishment and bliss, or punishment or bliss in the grave. So this is what happens. What the barzakh is from what period to what period? From the time of death. So the barzakh differs for each individual. As for the resurrection, that happens to all of the creation at the same time. But the barzakh, every person who dies, their barzakh begins. Because that's the qiyamah sughra, the minor qiyamah. So the barzakh is those two things, the trial of the grave and the punishment of the grave. So we're going to start by studying the trial of the grave. And there's 6 components under there. So I'm just trying to help us move through the text. Bismillah. All right. Those 6, as we said, are proofs, then conceptualization, then the severity of the trial, the exceptions from the trial. We'll talk about the angels, the questioning angels, and we'll talk about the difference between the trial as is faced by a believer versus a a hypocrite or a non-believer. Tayyib. So the first thing we're going to cover is what? Proofs. Fadl Shaykh.
His statement.
Just hit the button. Yeah, there you go.
His statement.
I guess. I don't have
His statement, they also believe in the trial of the grave, the punishment of the grave, and its pleasure. The trial here means test, and what is intended by the trial of the grave is the interrogation, the questioning of the deceased, the dead person, when buried, concerning his Lord, that is his Rabb, his religion, that is his deen, and his prophet, Hada Nabi, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The pronoun in they believe, pronoun means in this case the word they. The pronoun in the phrase they believe refers to the people of the Sunnah. That is, the people of the Sunnah and the Jama'ah believe in the trial of the grave. That
okay,
is,
so what are we talking about when we talk about the trial of the grave? He gives us a very brief introduction to what it means. The questions, right. So, right. A trial is the same as a test, and every test has questions, right? So, what is intended by that is the interrogation of the deceased, one buried, concerning his Lord, his religion, and his prophet. Like, yeah.
that is based on the evidence of the book and the Sunnah, or the various pieces of evidence of the book and the Sunnah concerning this.
All right, so the proofs that we have for there being a fitna in the grave is from the Quran and the Sunnah. That is what the author is telling us here. What does he say from the Quran? As for the book,
it is contained in his statement in Surah Ibrahim translation, which reads, Allah will keep firm those who believe with the word that stands firm in this world and in the hereafter. This is concerning the trial of the grave as established.
So let's just, if we can. So Surah Ibrahim, the 27th ayah, يثبت الله الذين آمنوا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. Allah Azza wa Jal makes firm those who believe with the firm word. Okay? What is al-qawl al-thabit? What is that referring to? The firm word. Right. It is referring to the shahadatain. Or it is referring to La ilaha illallah, and Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam follows that shahada anyway, follows that testimony. Allah will make them firm. Fi dunya wa fil akhirah. He keeps them firm with that firm statement in this life and in the next. Okay. Somebody repeat that back to me. يثبت الله الذين آمنوا بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. In English. Somebody bring it back. Allah will keep those who believe firm with the firm word in this world. And where is fitnatul qabr in that ayah?
In this world and in the hereafter.
In this world and hereafter. That could be firm on the sirat that's over Jahannam. It's implicit. Allahu A'lam. Where is it? If you look at this ayah, alhamdulillah. If you got the book in front of you, you tell me. Yeah.
It's not explicit in the ayah. It would be explicit in the sunnah.
It's not explicit in the ayah. Tayyib. It's explicit in the sunnah. Tayyib. Read. Keep reading.
As for this,
we're on page, the PDF 81. What page is that in the book?
it's 160 and 161.
160. Yeah.
This is concerning the trial of the grave as established in the two Sahihs, that is Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari.
So this ayah, he says, is referring to the trial of the grave, fitnatul qabr, as is established in the two Sahihs and others in the hadith of al-Bara ibn Azib from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. Now, we keep going and we don't see that hadith. Once you go to the next page, Shaykh is on to another topic. Because he's teaching students, and I just want you to understand the method, why a person would write a certain way. First of all, this explanation was not a written explanation to begin with. It was an oral explanation. And the sheikh's got big students in front of him. He's not hadith Quran ibn Azib, they're going to keep it moving. So, for example, if we said, intentions are very important in Islam because of the hadith of Umar, radiallahu anhu. Some people would know that right away. What's the hadith of Umar? Innamal a'malu binniyat. The actions are by intentions for every person, right? So you've been Muslim for some time. You kind of, all right, yeah. So sheikh's not going to repeat himself all the time. So just to understand how sometimes it works in terms of how evidence is brought. So I'll read to you the hadith of al-Bara ibn Azib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ نَزَلَتْ فِي عَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ. He said himself, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, نَزَلَتْ فِي عَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ فَيُقَالُ لَهُ مَنْ رَبُّكَ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّيَ اللَّهُ وَنَبِيِّ مُحَمَّدٍ صلى الله عليه وسلم فَذَلِكَ قَوْلُهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ. Okay, he said that the statement of Allah, Allah will make firm those who believe with the firm word. He said this was revealed about the punishment of the grave, the adab al-qabr, about the punishment of the grave. It will be said to him, it will be asked of him, who is your Lord? He will say, my Lord is Allah, my prophet is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the meaning of Allah's statement, so forth, or that is referring to Allah's statement. And then there's another narration where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, إِذَا عُقْعِدَ الْمُؤْمِنُ فِي قَبْرِهِ أُتِيَ ثُمَّ شَهِدَ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَأَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ فَذَلِكَ قَوْلُهُ يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ. When a believer is made to sit in his grave, the angels will come to him and he will testify that there is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, and that corresponds to Allah's statement, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ. Okay, so one of the things that we benefit from this is that to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's book, you have to know who clarified the meanings of that book, which was who? Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this was the dua that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam made for this ummah. He said what? After he finished building the Kaaba, alayhi salam, what dua did he make? رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا. Then after that, for this ummah, he said, رَبَّنَا وَبَعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ. O our Lord, send to them or bring forth from them a messenger from amongst them. رَبَّنَا وَبَعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. Reciting to them your ayat and teaching them the book and the wisdom. The wisdom referring to his ways, his sunnah. He said what? Reciting to them the verses and teaching them the book. What's the difference? Right. The recitation of the book, he teaches them how to recite the Quran, the words of the Quran. And this Quran is preserved in that manner because the Prophet ﷺ taught the companions the words. And this deen, from the very beginning, there was no external oppressor. You see, if you look at the time of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, Isa came, and then immediately after his death, and during his life, his followers were not in the best of states. They were oppressed by the leadership that was around them. So the preservation of their book was not like the preservation of the book of Islam. We didn't have any external factors going on there. So the Prophet ﷺ taught his companions the book. They learned that book. They were able to write it down. They were able to spread it without any obstacles. And so the book was preserved. Unlike the prophets that came before our Prophet ﷺ. So Yatlu alayhim ayat, that's the recitation of the book, the preservation of its words. But the Prophet ﷺ also taught the meanings. And that's why it's very important that a person doesn't go and try to put their own twist on things, because that's how the religion changes. And the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preserved, both in terms of its love and its ma'na, both in terms of the actual words itself and the meanings. Right. So here, this proof from the Quran is, though the words, if you just read the Quran and you didn't know what the tafsir of the Prophet ﷺ was, you may not get from it that it deals with the trial of the grave. Once you know what the Prophet ﷺ said, then it becomes clear that this ayah is referring to the trial of the grave. Not shaykh.
As for the sunnah?
Yes.
As for the sunnah, it has been overwhelmingly reported that the person will be subjected to trial in his grave. That is the trial about which the Prophet ﷺ said, "But it has been revealed to me that you shall be tried in your graves with what is like or close to the trial of Ad-Dajjal." Furthermore, the trial of Ad-Dajjal is the worst of all trials since the day Allah created Adam until the hour is established.
Okay, so stop there real quick. This is what is known in Arabic as al-istiqrad. So this is when you come across something and you kind of go off on a digression, if you will, right? And then you have to come back to your point. So right now he's going to talk a little bit about the Dajjal. Why is he talking about the Dajjal? And what I'm trying to get you to do is get used to how people write in Arabic, because this is how it works. So the Dajjal has nothing to do with what Shaykh al-Islam is talking about here. Shaykh al-Islam is trying to establish the belief in the fitnat al-qabr. Why are we talking about the Dajjal?
It's a major trial.
Nah, I mean,
He's trying to project a similitude of the trial of the Dajjal.
well, he's not trying to.
Well, I mean,
He's telling us the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he compared the trial of the grave to the trial of a Dajjal. And because he mentioned a Dajjal, now he's like, wait a minute, I gotta let everybody know this is a big fitna. Now, follow.
I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, "There is no affair between the time Adam was created until the beginning of the hour, worse than a Dajjal." But the Prophet ﷺ said to his companions, rather he said to his ummah, "If he appears while I am among you, I will contend with him. I will fight with him on your behalf. But if he appears while I am not among you, everyone will have to contend for himself. Allah is my Khalifa upon every Muslim."
Okay, so here he has Allah is my Khalifa. Then you see a footnote. So if you don't understand what that means, what should you do? Go down and read the footnote. The footnote says, meaning who will look after matters when I am gone. And that is similar to the dua that you make when you travel. When you travel, what do you say? Like, وَالْخَلِيفَةُ فِي الْأَهْلِ. Right? So you say, yeah, we're not going to go through every line. That's somebody's going to take you straight to the point. Well, that is the part where the Prophet ﷺ says, وَالْخَلِيفَةُ فِي الْأَهْلِ. He teaches us to say that, making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be the Khalifa for our families, as we travel. Yani he's the one that looks after their affairs, and he is the one that looks after their affairs all of the time. Not you.
Despite this, our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has taught us how to contend with him. That is the Dajjal. He has informed us of his attributes and his features, such that it is as if we are looking at him directly.
How did the Prophet ﷺ describe the Dajjal? He said that on his forehead it is written Kaf, Fa, Ra, and Kafara, or that he is a kafir. He will have
One eye.
no, not one eye like a cyclops though, because that's how some people think it is. Mamsuh al-ayn, huh? Awa, it's awa. Yani one-eyed in the sense that he won't be able to see out of one of his eyes. The Prophet ﷺ said that it described it as being like a grape. It'll look like a grape. And he described other attributes, that he'll be short, have curly hair, and so forth. But his fitna is no joke, because when he comes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him the ability to do certain things that normal people just don't have the ability to do. He will say for it to rain, and it will rain. He will come with rivers, one river out of fire, the other river out of water. The one that's out of water is actually fire. The one that looks like the fire is actually water. He's called the Dajjal. And why is that? Dajjal is to mix and to confuse something. That the root word of a Dajjal. And that's because he's mixing and he's confusing people and deceiving people. And so one who is a great deceiver is called a Dajjal. Nah.
That is why we are saying the trial of Ad-Dajjal is the greatest and the worst of all trials. The Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, said, "You should be tested in your graves with that which is like or close to the trial of Ad-Dajjal." What a great trial. This is because man will be subjected to the questioning, which is not easy to answer.
All right, let's just take a step back real quick. So, follow me here real quick before we get into the severity of the trial. Here, the conceptualization, because before we start going in deep on anything, it is important for us to understand what it is that we're talking about. And the author gave us a one-liner, right? He said, back on this page right here, at the very beginning. At the very beginning, he said, and what is meant by the trial is a test, and it's referring to the interrogation that the deceased will have, but didn't go into much more detail. So if you skip to page, as you can see here, page 169, and we're going to read this together. His statement, "Who is your Lord?" So this is the actual test here, and this will help us to understand and conceptualize what is happening. Two angels will come to one who is deceased, and they will ask him, "Who is your Lord? What is your religion? And who is your prophet?" His statement, "Who is your Lord?" meaning, Father Sheikh, just read it off.
Who is your Lord, who created you and whom you worship and singled out for the purpose of worship? In order that this statement comprises Tawhid al-Rububiyyah or Tawhid al-Uluhiyyah.
In other words, they're not asking who is your Lord in the sense, who do you believe created you? But who is your Lord as in who did you used to worship? And there are times when the word Rabb in the Quran is used to mean al-ma'bud, yani the one who is worshipped. اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. They took their monks and their rabbis as arbab, the plural of Rabb. They took them as lords besides Allah. It does not mean that they believed that they were creators or that they, had control of the universe or governed the universe. They worshiped them besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How was that worship? They took their laws, what they made halal, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it haram, and they made it halal just like their rabbis and monks or their scholars. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made halal, but they made haram, they followed their scholars in that. And so through following their scholars and giving them the right to legislate what is halal and haram, then they took them as lords. They worshipped them besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's several other places in the Quran. So the point is here that when they say, "Who is your Lord?" they're not saying, "Who do you believe was the creator?" Who did you used to worship? That's the question.
His statement, "What is your religion? What is your deen?" meaning, what are your deeds by which you worshiped Allah, the mighty and sublime, and drew close and drew nearer to Him?
What system did you follow to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That is your deen. That is your deen. So, what way of life did you follow? How did you come across? How do you worship Allah? What was your? You say that Allah is your Lord. What system did you use to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Did you do it based off of what He revealed, or was it based off of your own Did I just see something flying over here? That was just. Oh, okay. All right. I thought somebody might have to take me to the hospital. Right. Last one, Sheikh.
The third one, that is the third question, who is your prophet? Meaning, who is the prophet whom you believed in and followed?
Right. Okay. Nah. So I just wanted to allow us to understand, conceptualize what the trial of the grave is actually referring to. Now we can get back to the severity. Follow Sheikh.
Thus, Allah will keep firm those who believe that the word that stands firm in this world and in the hereafter. Surah Ibrahim, 22nd verse. The believer will say, Rabbi Allah, my Lord is Allah. Islamuddin. Islam is my religion.
Where'd you go?
Feed 169 is the bottom.
No.
Go back.
Yeah, go back. That was just to conceptualize.
Okay.
Now, yeah.
That is why we're saying the trial. 161.
That's it. Yeah.
That is why we are saying the trial of Ad-Dajjal is the greatest and the worst of all trials. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "You shall be tested in your graves with that which is like or close to the trial of Ad-Dajjal." What a great trial! This is because man will be subjected to the question which is not easy to answer, except for he who has strong foundations of creed and righteous actions. Understand?
Yeah, that's good.
As for the trial, Mr. Miller?
Yeah. So here, I want you to focus on this part right here, though. He said, "What a great trial," because the man will be subjected to questioning, which is not easy to answer. Okay. Just one second. Those who will do so, those who will answer the question, will only do so because Allah made them firm. Not because in this life they knew how to parrot other people. Like you see a lot of people teaching children, which is not a bad thing. Man Rabbuk, Rabbi Allah, Madin, Dini al-Islam, Man Nabi Muhammad. That's great. But that doesn't mean that's going to help a person in the hereafter. Because you don't have to know Arabic and you'll be able to answer the questions. And you may be an Arab who was with the Prophet ﷺ and won't be able to answer the questions. Like is the case of the munafiqun, the hypocrites, who prayed behind the Prophet ﷺ. They knew this stuff way better than we ever will, in terms of the language. But they won't be able to answer those questions. And so the only people who will answer those questions correctly are those whom Allah yuthabbit. Those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes firm with the firm word in this life and the hereafter. And so the greatest way to save oneself from the trial is to make La ilaha illallah your life. That you truly do not worship anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you truly turn your entire life towards Allah. As our Prophet ﷺ was instructed to say in the Quran, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say that my salah and my sacrifice, the ritual sacrifice, and my life and my death are for Allah. لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ. For Allah, the Lord of the worlds, He has no peer and no partner. That is how a person will gain Allah's thabat, firmness, in the grave. Not by parroting. And it's just very important because a lot of us, subhanAllah, we may think that by learning these things and our mother tongue is not Arabic, we'll go ahead, we'll just learn, okay, practice it. Man Rabbuk, Rabbi Allah. And you can say it 100,000 times. It's not going to make a difference. It's going to be like something that you know how to do, but you're so scared you just tense up. You don't know what to do because Allah didn't make that person thabit. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his thabat.
As for the trial, then indeed the people should be trialed in the graves. So it is said to the man.
Okay, so this is the statement of Shaykh al-Islam in Wasitiyah. He says, فَأَمَّا الْفِتْنَةِ فإن الناس يفتنون في قبورهم فيقال للرجل ما ربك وما دينك وما نبيك. As for the trial, indeed people shall be tried in their graves. It will be said to the man, who is your Lord and what is your religion and who is your prophet. Not
his statement as for the trial, then indeed the people shall be tried in their graves. This is the beginning of the explanation of how the deceased is tried in his graves. The word "the people" proves generality.
So Shaykh al-Islam said people will be tried in their graves, which means that everybody, people, refers to every human being. But here the shaykh, or the one Shaykh al-Taymin is going to mention who may be excluded from that. Now,
the apparent meaning of the author's statement is that everybody, even the prophets, the siddiqeen, the martyrs, the murabitun, those who guard the frontiers, those who are not legally responsible among the young, and the insane will be subjected to trials in the graves. And there are some details related to this. Hence we say, firstly, as for the prophets, the trial does not include them.
Okay, so the author is going to tell us here, I just want you to follow. He's going to mention that there are some people who will not be tried in their graves. The first group of people he says is who? The prophets. Now, what is his evidence? Listen.
The first is that the prophets are better than the martyrs. And the Prophet ﷺ has informed us that the martyrs will be protected from the trial of the grave. He said, the flash of the swords over his head is enough of a trial.
Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ specifically, we have a hadith that says that martyrs are what? Exempt from the trial in the grave. The Prophet ﷺ said those swords flying over his head, that's enough of a trial. So the martyrs are exempt, and prophets are better than martyrs. So therefore, prophets are exempt. Is that a convincing argument?
Yeah.
Prophets are the best of mankind. There's nothing that we're not going to argue about that. We're talking about right here. Is that a convincing argument?
Yes.
Yeah? I'm not asking you, are prophets exempt? I'm saying, is that argument a convincing argument? I want you to learn how to read critically.
I say it's a good qiyas.
It's a good qiyas. Exactly. It's qiyas. And when it comes to belief in the hereafter, we got to leave qiyas. See, these are matters of the unseen. I want us to understand this. These are matters of the unseen. So therefore, just because prophets are better than martyrs does not mean that everything that a martyr gets, that the prophet, that a prophet gets the exact same thing. It does. That's not necessary. Yes.
But isn't it with regards to talking about revelation or the hereafter? It comes from the prophet. It's revelation.
What's revelation?
What he says.
What the Prophet said is revelation. The Prophet said that the martyrs will not be questioned.
And he said that the prophets are better than
martyrs. Okay. And the prophets are better than martyrs. Okay.
But regarding that, because he's talking about revelation.
Okay. All right. So let's take a step back. Because we could, if we go down that rabbit hole, there are several other things that we could talk about where there's a reward for doing this. Well, that thing is better. So do we get the reward for doing that as well? You'll see as it flushes out, inshallah, that there are other situations where that just won't hold up. Now, what's the second evidence? Just stay with me. What's the second evidence? Go ahead.
It's that the prophets will be inquired about while saying to the dead, who is your prophet? They are the ones about whom people will be asked. They are not the ones to be questioned.
That is super convincing. In other words, who is your prophet? I am the prophet. Yani he's not going to be asked about himself because he is the prophet. So here, that makes perfect sense that a prophet would not be asked, would not be tried in the grave, because they are the prophet. They won't be asked about themselves. Like that can't work.
So
Yes. That's not PS.
Right. It's not?
No, that's not PS.
It's not qat'i.
That's explicit. It's explicit. Yes. It's explicit that a person, there's no, we're not making qiyas on something else. So here, a prophet, this is his second evidence, along with the first evidence, though the first evidence is also not explicit. Yes.
So the other two questions would be, I guess, like null and void because of that?
Of course, because they're a prophet. They're the ones that were teaching the people who Allah is and what the deen is. Nah, yeah.
So the second
One second.
There are also other ahadith that talk about prophets and their state in the grave, for example, specifically with the Prophet ﷺ, that are different than other, I guess you could say, believers. And so maybe from that we can derive that they have a special status.
The prophets have a special status. That's without a doubt. And our Prophet ﷺ specifically has a special status in the life of the barzakh. That's not our issue here. The issue is, will they be questioned? And the answer is absolutely not. They will not be questioned. Again, though, how do we arrive at that conclusion is what we're talking about here. So you can have a test, any exam, and you do a multiple choice. For example, in math specifically, your teacher wants you to do what all the time? Show your work. How did you come to this conclusion? The issue is not that we came to the right conclusion. Because an ignorant person, a person who does not know what they're talking about, even if so somebody comes up to them, they have no qualifications whatsoever to answer questions. Okay? They've been Muslim, mashallah, 2 years, studied nothing. But a brand new Muslim comes to them. And so now they look like Shaykh al-Islam. Okay? So they come and ask him something. He should not be answering questions. And he still says something. Now, maybe the answer he gave is right, but he's still sinful because he's speaking without knowledge. Just because you said something that was right does not mean that you answering the question is right. Again, the point here is showing your work. So the second evidence that Shaykh Uthaymeen brings here, rahimahullah, is very compelling. And that is, why would a prophet be asked about himself? Who is your prophet? I am the prophet. I mean, there's no way to answer that question. What is your deed? That's clear. They already passed the test. They don't need to be, they're not going to be asked. Follow. Secondly.
Accordingly.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Accordingly, this is the understanding why the Prophet ﷺ said, "It was revealed to me that you shall be tried in your grave." The address is to the Ummah whom he was sent to. Hence, the messenger is not included among them.
Secondly, so that's the first category, the prophets. Second category.
As for the Siddiqeen, they are not going to be questioned because the rank of the Siddiqeen is a higher rank than that of the martyrs.
أولئك مع الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين. Right?
If the martyrs were being exempt from being questioned, then the Siddiqeen are more worthy of that. And because the Siddiq, according to the interpretation of the word, his truthfulness and sincerity actually in English, we want the core of that, and that means pure, unadulterated. That's what actually sincere, that's part of sincerity.
Like we're talking is Siddiq, right? The root word is from what? What's the root of Siddiq? Okay, the verb sadaqa, right? A sidq. Okay, so these people are truthful, they are sincere, they affirm. A Siddiq is one who affirms the truth. They're from the first followers. They're not, nobody questions their authenticity and the purity of their truthfulness, because it's not like they're just following the masses. Siddiq, you know that they're truthful because they're going against the grain. Yeah.
And sincerity has been known. And because the Siddiq, according to the interpretation of the word, his truthfulness and sincerity has been known and confirmed, then he needs not be subjected to any test, because the test is meant for those about whom there is doubt. Is he truthful all the time or a liar? But as for the truthful one, there is no need calling for him to be questioned. Some of the scholars held the view that they shall also be questioned.
And some of the scholars of Islam held the view that the Siddiqeen shall be questioned based on
the generality of the proof. And Allah knows best.
And that seems to be the correct opinion, that the Siddiqun, that the only ones that will not be questioned are those that we have specific evidence for to indicate that they won't be questioned.
As for the martyrs who are killed in the court.
One second. Yes.
Like for instance, Abu Bakr was Siddiq that he was promised Jannah. So that'd be like
The fact that a person was promised Jannah doesn't mean that they won't be questioned.
No.
No.
As for the martyrs who were killed in the court.
I mean, in fact, all of the companions were promised Jannah.
Yeah.
وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Hadith, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised all of them al-husna, promised all of them Jannah. But does that mean that they will enter Jannah without hisab? No. No.
So the shuhada be like hisab.
Not necessarily.
I mean, there's no fault that they have, right?
We don't have any evidence that I'm aware of that says that a shaheed is automatically counted amongst those who enter Jannah without hisab. And the Prophet ﷺ said there are 70,000 from this ummah who will enter Jannah without hisab. He did not mention that they are martyrs. He said, هُمُ الَّذِينَ لَا يَسْتَرْقُونَ وَلَا يَكْتَوُونَ وَلَا هُمُ الَّذِينَ لَا يَتَطَيَّرُونَ وَلَا يَسْتَرْقُونَ وَلَا يَكْتَوُونَ وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. Prophet ﷺ didn't say they were the martyrs. He said they were those who don't seek out ruqyah. They, not those who don't perform ruqyah, but those who don't go out seeking for a raqi. They are those who do not, they don't have this superstitious belief in omens.
Okay, so what would be the definition of the Siddiqeen?
A Siddiq is one who, I
I'm
just
saying
mentioned
the
that.
general idea, but I'm saying specifically, like, maybe like be the followers of the NBA or just generally like whoever.
So some of the scholars have mentioned that the Siddiqun are only those who were followers, immediate followers of a prophet. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I'm not sure that that's the correct definition. I'm not sure that it doesn't apply to other than those who immediately followed the prophet and that were alive during the life of a prophet.
Thirdly, as for the martyrs who were killed in the cause of the law, they shall not be questioned due to the clarity of the truthfulness of their faith by their engaging in jihad. The translation of Surah At-Tawbah. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة يقاتلون في سبيل الله فيقتلون ويقتلون وعدا عليه حقا في التوراة والإنجيل والقرآن. Verily Allah has purchased, I like that one. Verily Allah has purchased of the believers their lives and their properties for the price that theirs shall be paradise. They fight in Allah's cause, so they kill and are killed. And this is a promise that Allah has made in the Torah and the Injil and especially in the Quran. And who is more reliable in keeping a bargain than Allah? And then Allah goes on to name the categories.
No. And then the Prophet ﷺ also says, skip that ayat, the next ayat. Then the Prophet ﷺ also said,
okay, and the Prophet ﷺ also said, the flash of the swords over his head is enough of the trial.
And that's enough for us. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is clear.
Fourthly, as for the murabitun, those who guard the frontiers.
Al-murabit is the one who is on the borders of the Muslim land, making sure that nobody comes in to attack. No.
They shall not be tried. For in Sahih Muslim, it is reported that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, Ribat, that is guarding the frontier, for a day and a night is better than fasting a month, and it's standing in the night for prayer, and it's standing there is better than fasting a month and standing in prayer for a night. If this person dies, the reward of the deed he was doing, that is being murabit, will be continued for him, and his provision will be continued, and he will be safe from the trials, from the fitan.
And in some narrations it says umina min fatanay al-qabr, and he will be saved from the two questioners of the grave. So it clarifies, again, without going through a long explanation, but it's clear here that what it's referring to is the trial of the grave. So the Prophet ﷺ explicitly talks about the murabitun and that they will be saved from the trial of the grave. Now,
fifthly, the young and the insane. Will they be subjected to trials or no? Some of the scholars say they will be tried, or they are included in the general meeting. But if they are exempted from being legally responsible in this life, the situation after death is different from the situation of this worldly life.
Without a but. And if they are exempted, because of the fact that they are exempted in this life, that they are not legally responsible, then similarly the situation after death, that they won't be held accountable, apparently.
Go down to therefore, 5 categories?
No, sorry, you're right. So let me just rephrase that.
Okay.
Some of the scholars say that they will be tried. Who? Young people who haven't reached the age of puberty, and those who are insane. They say even though they're not legally responsible for anything in this life, situation in the hereafter is different. The hereafter is not the same as this life. So they will be responsible and they will be questioned. And that actually is the position of the majority of the scholars of Islam. Right.
Go down to therefore 5 categories.
Hold on, keep going. So some of the scholars say...
Okay, some of the scholars say that the insane and the young will not be questioned because they are not legally responsible. And when they are not legally responsible, then there is no reckoning for them. And there is no reckoning except for the legally responsible who is punishable for sins. And these people, therefore, are not punished. There is nothing but reward for them. If they do a good deed, they shall be rewarded for it. Therefore...
So just to recap, there's no solid evidence for number 5. Yeah, we can, if we want to use qiyas or something like that, but there's no solid evidence for number 5 or for number 2. Okay? Just recap, therefore.
Therefore, 5 categories of people are exempt from the statement of the author because, for the people, that quotation. The prophets, the siddiqeen, the martyrs, the murabitun, those who are the frontier, and those who do not have any are not able to judge correctly.
No, it says those who don't have any sense. But no, what it means is those who do not have maturity. No.
Such as the insane and the immature.
Yes.
So who are the youngest in age?
It means those who have not reached the age of puberty. So when we talk about the young in Islam, or we talk about children in Islam, we're talking about those who have not reached the age of puberty. Once a child reaches the age of puberty, even if that's at the age of 10, 11, they are no longer in Islam considered to be a child in the sense that they are now religiously responsible and liable for the practices of Islam. This is a huge mistake that parents make. And a lot of us we want to baby our 7-year-olds, our 8-year-olds. The Prophet instructed us to tell them to pray. So start getting them up for salah. And you can do that gradually as well. But for example, in the summertime, yes, salat comes in super early, 4 o'clock, but they don't have school, for example. Get them up. Wake them up. If they don't, I can't get up. Okay, fine. They're 7, 8, 9. By the time they're 10, after they've been practicing for 3 years, it should become a habit for them. It becomes habitual. Something feels off in their day when they don't pray at the right time. Because these are the things, you're creating that habit because this is your job as a parent. Your job is not to make your children happy. It's not your responsibility. Your job is to teach them virtue, to teach them how to draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's your being happy? No. It's not to say, inshallah, they will be happy through the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's not your job. You're not responsible. You're not held accountable. Oh, you didn't help your child be happy on that particular day. Your child asked you for chocolate and you didn't give it to him. Now Allah's going to punish you. Come on. we have to take more of an active role in making sure that our children practice this deen and that they understand what they're doing. So the child, once that child reaches the age of puberty, they're responsible to Allah. You can't go, I miss Ramadan, I'm fasting today because I got football practice. And it's okay with the parents sometimes, which is insane. Because, we are telling them that your sport is more important than deen. And why is that? Well, maybe through this sport, they make it big and we can all move out the hood off of football. So maybe we really do think it's more important than deen. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his protection. You can't, Shaykh. You can't. You take it over to class.
I just wanted, before you leave it, this is actually, I was going to ask you one question, because it was unsettling.
Because what?
You said something that was unsettling the way I understood it.
Go ahead.
Okay, like for instance, let's say that the person who's a martyr that goes to Jannah, like you mentioned about the green birds. So they could possibly be questioned?
Yeah. No, the martyrs are not questioned in the grave, but in terms of accountability, in terms of Yom al-Hisab.
Okay, I see.
Right. Yeah, so that's a different type. The question in the grave is three things, and three things only that we're aware of. Ma Rabbuk, wa ma dinuk, wa man nabiyuk. Who is your Lord? What is your deen? Who is your prophet? That's what we know to be from the trial of the grave. As for Yom al-Hisab, when the account is actually established, a person is going to be asked about everything.
So when the mixed one says that those who have no sense, you have a lot of people today, children that are autistic, be autistic adults. Do they fall under that category?
Autism is not one thing. So there are those who have been classified as autistic, but they're highly functioning. They're not insane. They understand. You talk to them, they can respond. They know how to make wudu. They know how to differentiate between salawat and stuff like that. Those people are accountable. But each person is also only accountable according to their ability, right? So again, a 15-year-old's accountability who has reached puberty is not going to be like a 60-year-old's accountability. In fact, we have specific hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has taken away excuses from the one who has reached the age of 60. You reach the age of 60, no, you have no more excuse. Right. Those excuses are taken away. The Prophet ﷺ, the shaykh zani, the old adulterer, the Prophet ﷺ talked about, his punishment is much different than a young guy who's following his lust. And they all, subject to a severe punishment. It's all from major sins. But it varies. So a person's accountability is going to be based on several factors. Keep going, Shaykh, please.
Important note?
Yes.
Important note. People are of three categories: absolute believers and absolute hypocrites. These two categories will be tried in the grave. The third category is absolute disbelievers. There is a difference of opinion concerning their trial. In the book Ar-Ruh, Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, gave preference to the view that they shall be tried in their grave. Will the earlier nations, the followers of other prophets...
So will non-believers be subject to the trial in the grave? Scholars have difference of opinion. Again, there's no real solid, clear evidence either way, but it seems like they fall under the general proof, which is that people will be tried in their graves. And so non-believers are also people, so they'll be tried in their graves. But those who say that they won't be tried in their graves is because the answer is already clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So then is it clear that for the non-believer, once they ask that first question and they have the incorrect answer to that first question?
So it's going to come. That actually is going to come. It's going to be the next two slides. You'll hear all of that, inshallah. Just finish this section and then we can call it then.
Some of the scholars held the view that they shall be tried, which is the correct position. Because
now we're talking about the earlier nations, the followers of other prophets. Yes.
Because if this ummah, which is the most honorable ummah, will be tried, those that are less honorable are more worthy of that. Concerning his statement, in their graves, the grave refers to the place where a dead person is buried.
Is it time for that then? Oh, alhamdulillah. Keep it going. Bismillah. All right.
That which is intended in its wider sense. It includes the barzakh, that is the life between death and the advent or the beginning of the hour.
Okay, so this is simply, this part right here is basically saying that in their graves, you don't need to look here. We're not talking about that yet. Still a way to make this thing blank. Anyway, all right. In their graves is referring to what happens to a person after they die, even if this person was not buried. Okay, so we use the terminology is adab al-qabr because the Prophet ﷺ said so. He said the punishment of the grave, or na'im al-qabr, yani the bliss that one experiences in the grave. That's because the majority of mankind are buried. However, this still applies to someone that was eaten by a shark or cremated or whatever their situation may have been. All this trial will happen to each and every one of them. And this is the point that the author is making here. He says, concerning the statement, in their graves, the grave refers to the place where a dead person is buried. What is intended is wider in sense. It includes the barzakh, that is the life between death and, he says, the advent of the hour, or resurrection. Whether the dead person is buried or devoured by predatory animals on the land, lions and so forth, or by fish in the sea, sharks, or he is destroyed by a violent wind, or whatever is the case. What is apparent is that the trial... Okay, keep going now. Yeah, what is apparent?
What is apparent is that the trial will not occur except after the end, the termination of all worldly conditions, and passage will occur into the world of the hereafter. If his burial is delayed for a day or more, the questioning will not begin, will not commence until he is buried.
And that is due to the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, where he stood at the grave and he said, "Ask for thabat for him, فَإِنَّهُ الْآنَ يُسْأَلُ." Ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him thabat now, because he said, ask that Allah give him thabat because he is now being questioned. Where was that? As he was buried. Okay? So what can be understood from that is that if a person does not begin to be questioned until they are buried. No.
Mr. Man?
Yeah.
His statement, so it is said to the man, the ones that will be talking are two angels who will come to the person in his grave. They will sit him up and question him, such that he can even hear the footsteps of those leaving the other people who attended his funeral, while the two angels are questioning him. That is why, from the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ, that whenever someone is buried, he himself, that Prophet ﷺ would stand at the grave and say, seek forgiveness for your brother and ask for fortitude.
Ask for fortitude, yani thabat.
For him, because he is now being questioned.
No.
And it is reported in some narrations that the names of these angels are Munkar and Nakir.
All right, so what's our first question here? Sheikh Akil, read the first question.
Is there any sound evidence that their names are Munkar and Nakir?
Okay. Further, go ahead.
Based on the... I'm sorry, me?
No, you.
Okay, footnote. Based on the...
No. Forget the footnote.
Okay. And some of the scholars have rejected these two names.
Right, okay, so he says that they are Munkar and Nakir based on the report in the Tirmidhi and Ibn Abi Asim, the Sunnah, and so on and so forth. The Prophet ﷺ said that these two black, he said, azraqani or aswadani azraqani. Not black and blue, blue-black angels. I mean, not like they're, that's the description. Not like they're stripes or something like that, or one of them is blue and one of them is black. They're blue-black.
Super black.
White color.
Like light is, anyway. Nah. Gotcha.
How can the angels be, and some of the scholars have rejected these two names, saying how can the angels be named these two objectionable names, while Allah Ta'ala has described them with love?
Why does he say they are objectionable names? Because it comes from the root nekira. What's nekira mean? Okay, so nakira does mean unknown, something that the heart does not find ease with. Okay, so that's why we say you command the ma'ruf and you prohibit the what? The munkar. So with and then we usually translate as command the good and forbid the evil. So would an angel's name be evil, munkar? But that's not really what munkar means. Munkar doesn't actually mean evil. Well, in this context, because you're forbidding something that does not sit right with the heart, that is unknown to the heart, la yatasawwaruhu al-qalb, as they say. It's not something that so in this sense, it is evil, and that's why you forbid it. But munkar, in terms of its linguistic construction, is just something that is not known. So this one is called munkar, and that one is called nakir, because they are not known to the one that they are questioning.
They also declare the hadith mentioning them to be weak.
Right. So some of the scholars of Islam hold that the hadith that mentions that their names are munkar and nakir, they hold this hadith to be weak. And if the hadith is weak, that's the only way we know their names. So if a scholar of hadith comes to the conclusion that there's no authentic evidence for that, then they won't call them munkar and nakir. As for, so why have some of the scholars objected to those names or rejected those names? The first reason is what? Because of the meaning. That's the first reason he mentioned. Okay. Second is because they say a hadith is weak. So if we say a hadith is weak, then we can get rid of it. But inshallah, the hadith is at least hasan. The second thing is the objection because of the meaning of the name. These names, there's nothing wrong with the meaning of munkar or nakir. Now, some others held the view that the hadith is a proof, that is a dalil, and that the fact they are being called such does not mean they are detestable in their natures, in their essence, that is. They are only that is stated because the third person does not know them, as our shaykh just said, and has no previous knowledge of them. Right.
Ibrahim said to his visitors, Kamun munkarun.
Yeah, he called Ibrahim alayhi salam, when the angels came to him to let him know that he was going to have a son, Ismail, he said, Qawmun munkarun. They are a munkar people, because he didn't know who they were, not because they were evil. Right.
As the Shaykh said, because he did not know them. Thus, they are munkar and nakir because they are not known to the person who has died, the deceased. Then these two angels are the same two new angels entrusted with the residence of the grave, or are they the two recording angels who are at the right and the left of man?
All right. We're not going to go into that part. Call it then.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله هيا على الصلاة هيا هيا على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Okay, so, alhamdulillah, this is the final part that we'll be dealing with here, which is the answers, the trial of the grave. The last part that we'll be covering deals with the answers. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah says, فَيُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ فَيَقُولُ الْمُؤْمِنُ رَبِّيَ اللَّهُ وَالْإِسْلَامُ دِينِي وَمُحَمَّدٌ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ نَبِيٌّ. Thus Allah will keep firm those who believe with the firm word in this world and in the hereafter. The believer will say, my Lord is Allah, Islam is my religion, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is my prophet. وَأَمَّا الْمُرْتَابُ فَيَقُولُ ها لا أدري سمعت الناس يقولون شيئا فقلت فيضرب بمرزبة من حديد فيصيح صيحة يسمعها كل شيء إلا الإنسان ولو سمعها الإنسان لصاعق. As for the one who is a doubter, or he says here the skeptic, then he will say, I don't know. I heard people saying something, so I said it. So he will be struck with an iron hammer. So he screams with a scream that will be heard by everything except man. If man were to hear it, he would. It says sa'iq. He translates this as die. Sa'iq could mean die, or it could mean faint. No, his statement.
Thus Allah will keep firm those who believe with the word that stands firm in this world and in the hereafter. Meaning, he will make them among those who are firm, not wavering or stuttering at response. The word that stands firm is at-tawhid, such is said by him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, translation which reads, don't you see how Allah sets forth a parable? A goodly word, a strong word, a good word, as strong as a good tree, whose root is firmly fixed and its branches reach to the sky.
And you remember this was the subject of our study last summer, 2018, the book At-Tawdih wal-Bayan li Shajarat al-Iman. Clarity and explanation about related to the tree of faith. Shajarat al-Iman. It all dealt with this ayah, which deals with La ilaha illallah. Type skip. Concerning his statement, the believer will say, my Lord is Allah. Next page.
But the first meaning is better, more correct.
Concerning his statement, the believer will
concerning
say,
his statement, as for the skeptic, he will say,
The believer will say.
So the believer will say, my Lord is Allah. And when he is asked, who is your Lord? And when he is asked, he is asked, what is your religion? He will reply, Islam is my deen, is my religion. In a similar manner, he will say, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is my prophet, when he is asked, who is your prophet? With this, the answers are correct. Then a caller from the heaven will call, my servant spoke the truth. So spread out bedding for him from within paradise, clothe him from paradise, and open the door to paradise for him.
And this is also this is also from the hadith of Al-Bara ibn Azib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, narrates a long hadith about a man who died from the Ansar. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam then tells us what happens when the angel of death comes and how that soul is turned over to the angels of Rahmah if that person is going to be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or is turned over to the angels of torment if that person was one who rejected faith. And we covered that hadith in detail over the summer. Now,
concerning his statement?
Yeah, keep going.
As for the skeptic, he will say, I don't know. I heard people saying something, so I said it. The skeptic refers to the doubter, the hypocrite, and their like. Thus, he will say, I don't know. I heard people saying something, and I followed them saying the same thing. Meaning, faith had not penetrated his heart. He only used to say the same things that other people said without faith reaching his heart. Think about it saying, as if he forgot something which he wants to recall. And this is from the greatest of sorrow, that he imagines that he knows this response, but a barrier has been placed between him and it. Think
about that, subhanAllah. When you're asked a question, you know, one of those ones where you feel like it's on the tip of your tongue, like, Not one of those ones like, I don't even know what you're talking about. It's not one of those. It's one of those ones where it's like, man, I know, it's on the tip. I'm almost there. So that's as he says, this is the greatest form of sorrow. He knows the response, but a barrier is between him and that response because he didn't get that thabat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
He will not say Allah is my Lord, nor will he say Islam is my religion, nor will he say Muhammad is my prophet, because he was a skeptic and a doubter in the world. This is when he is being questioned in his grave, and he is most in need of knowing the correct answer. But he will be incapable, and he will thus say instead, I don't know. But I heard the people saying something, so I said it.
And so his faith was only a saying. His faith was only a saying. And this is why it is critical that our Islam is not a copycat thing. Islam does not promote that. Islam is a religion of evidence. It's a religion of proof. And we don't just copy people because these people are saying this or those people are saying that. It's imperative that we strive to learn our deen and that we teach, especially those that we are responsible for, that we teach them our deen. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Say, oh, you believe, save yourselves and your families because you are responsible for them. Save yourselves and your families from the fire. This is why it's so important, again, that we study. And why we're going through these books, because it takes time. It's a little, it requires a little work. It's not easy to sit here for 2 hours, 3 hours and sit down and go through a book and try to get this. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is why talab al-ilm is a great form of ibadah. And after the wajibat, it is the greatest form of ibadah. Seeking the knowledge of this deen. Because as you grow in knowledge, bi'idhnillah, you're going to grow in faith, you're going to grow in your practice of Islam, and you're going to be able to at least teach those whom you are responsible for. Now,
concerning his statements, that is in the hadith, namely, afterwards he will be struck with an iron.
That's not the hadith, that's the statement of Shaykh al-Islam.
Okay. Afterwards he will be struck with an iron hammer, so he will scream with the scream that will be heard by everything except man.
Okay, this is what Shaykh al-Islam says. He says that he will be struck with an iron hammer. He will scream so loud that it will be heard by everything except man. Shaykh al-Islam is actually going to correct that statement, because it's not just man that won't hear it, it's also the jinn. The jinn will not hear that scream. Right. So Shaykh al-Islam is actually going to correct that statement from Shaykh al-Islam.
He will be struck.
And I also, I didn't have any intention of talking about this, but I think it's important for us to understand as well that everybody's statement can be accepted or rejected, except for the one, as Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala said, except for Sahib wa hadha al-qabr, and he pointed to the grave of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Everybody's statement is not, it doesn't mean that it's for everybody to walk around and say, nah, I'm not accepting what he said, I don't care what he says. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, real academic discourse here. There was some oversight. Shaykh al-Islam said this. Perhaps he made a mistake. Shaykh al-Islam, in his explanation, he's correcting that mistake. Right? Again, you've seen several instances from when we started tonight where there have been differing opinions from amongst the scholars about particular topics. All of these are from the unseen, which means they're all aspects of our Aqidah where there's not strong evidence for either opinion. And so there's going to be several opinions on some of these things. It doesn't mean that when it comes to the foundations of our religion or usul of our deen, that the scholars differ, because they don't. But when it comes to these matters that may be from belief but are not from the foundations, then sometimes there is going to be differing, or there's room for some ath wa radd, as they say, some back and forth. So I just want to make that clear. That's not the hadith of the Prophet.
Tahir.
He will be struck.
Ibn Taymiyyah's statement, he will be struck. That is the one who does not answer correctly whether he was a disbeliever or a hypocrite. Moreover, those who strike him are the two angels who will be asking him the questions. Also, Mirzabah. Al-Mirzabah. Mirzabah. Okay, I have to shut it here.
Yeah, you shouldn't have it shut it.
Okay. That is the iron hammer. Just wanted you to know it wasn't my fault, right? That is the iron hammer. It is reported in some narrations that if all the people of Mina gathered to lift it, they would not be able to do so. When he is hit, he will cry out a terrible scream that will be heard by everything except for mankind. Concerning his statement of Ibn Taymiyyah, he will be struck, so he will scream. This is an audible, hearable scream. Everything will hear it. Those things that will hear his terrifying scream are those around him, and not everything in every place in the world hears him. Sometimes the one hearing it will be affected by such as when the messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, passed by the graves of some idolaters, some people who worship more than one God, while he, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, was on his mule, and the mule became agitated, nearly kicking him off, throwing him off, for it heard the sounds of those in the grave.
It heard the sounds of their torment, and that is left out of the translation, which is another reason why it's important that your books be studied. Not that you just rely on the translation, because sometimes the translations are not accurate and sometimes things are left out. We're going to stop. It's time for the salat. We're going to stop here, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. What we're going to pick up on next time, we're going to finish answering these questions, bi'idhnillah, and then we're going to start with the punishment and bliss in the grave. There are 4 main areas that are going to be covered based on our study. If you don't have the book, this is the book here. The explanation of Shaykh Uthaymeen for Sharh al-Aqidah al-Wasitiyah. It's also available on a PDF form. You can go to ummonline.org and you can download it from the front page, or you can find it online in a few other places. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Any questions about what preceded before we start Salat? Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding the book, I saw when the Sheikh was asking that, he was talking about the tawhid, that people will be asking regarding tawhid, uluhiyya, and ubudiyya.
Yeah.
But the Sheikh never talked about asmahi wa sifat.
Yeah, that's because his objective was not to talk about the categories of tawhid. His objective was to show that when a person is being asked about the Rabb, it is not simply that they are being asked about rububiyyah, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's lordship, but that they're also being asked about who they worshipped. And one of them is encompassing of the other in any event.
Then my question regarding is that can we do ta'wil or ta'atil or ta'rif of attribute of Allah, like changing the meaning from the literal meaning of
Allah? We can't. Whatever Allah, we affirm. And when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names and attributes, we affirm what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirmed for himself, because he knows about himself. And if he wanted to say something else about himself, he would have said it about himself. So we affirm what Allah says about himself, and we negate for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what he negates for himself. And we don't come and apply meanings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say, nor do we reject those meanings that he said about himself. So there is no tahrif, there's no ta'wil, there's no ta'til. Yes?
When you talk about the absence of the soul being in the body,
yeah,
that's how we determine what life is. Would that be the case if a person is in a vegetative state?
No, a person in a vegetative state still has a soul in their body. That person is breathing on their own the majority of the time. We're not talking about because the vegetative state is different from the one who's been declared brain dead. So they still have a lot of functions. They can't, in terms of mechanical functions, but they're not able to think. They're not able to recall, memorize, or anything like that. They can't talk. But in terms of bodily functions, a lot of them are doing that on their own. So they're not on ventilators and so forth. So that person is still alive. The one in the vegetative state. Yes.
When it was mentioned when it was said that the person would not be questioned until they're buried.
Right.
What does it mean for the person who was cremated?
Right. So for those who are cremated, who are devoured by animals or so on and so forth, then their hereafter begins immediately. I mean, in terms of trial and so forth, because there is no grave. And again, these are matters of the unseen, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to do all things, and there is nothing that is outside of His power. And we have certain hadith, for example, a man who thought he was going to escape punishment by getting cremated in this life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him, brought him back together, brought his body back together, and He questioned him. Now,
real quick question. Again, these are questions that I asked right after you pass away, when the birth begins.
yes.
Not when you, as soon as you go on the ground, just right after you pass away, correct?
So the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, what it indicates is that the person is being asked after they are buried, not as soon as they die.
Okay, so after they're buried.
After they're buried, right. In a situation here, like the brother mentioned, where someone is cremated, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best exactly when it's going to happen, but they're also going to be tried and tested. Yes?
Is there any basis for the Qibla as being one of the questions that will be asked? I've heard that somewhere. That's what Qibla do you pray to, or something like that?
I've never heard that, and if that was the case, there would need to be something specific from revelation. Yani that is, that the Prophet ﷺ would have to have informed us of that. His question was, is there any evidence that one of the things that you'll be asked about in the grave is what Qibla you prayed to? And I'm not aware of any evidence for that. And in fact, once a person is asked, Ma dinuk, yani, what is your deen? In other words, how did you worship Allah? What system? Under which system did you worship Allah? And you say Islam, then that is encompassing of all of those things. Allah Ta'ala Adam, Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.